بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to start a new course on philosophy. One of my favorite topics is this topic of النفس الفلسفي or philosophical psychology. It's somehow a gateway to many different topics and subjects. For example, ethics. It helps us about spirituality, about understanding resurrection, about education. Many things are related to this. So inshallah, trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking for his guidance and support, we start the course. رَبَّنَا عَلَيْكَ تَوَكَّلْنَا وَإِلَيْكَ أَنَبْنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. We are going to inshallah discuss different topics, and one of our main sources will be this book, درسنامه علم النفس فلسفی. The book is in Farsi, but at the back cover there is English also translation of the topic. A textbook in philosophical psychology. So this is based on the lectures of Ayatollah Fayyazi, but prepared by Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Yusufi. We may also use other things. Also, I would like to share with you two papers by me in English, because it's important that you learn also how to present Islamic view about soul in English. One paper is the first one that inshallah we are going to discuss, and this is what I presented in Austria. There was an annual conference on Wittgenstein, and a group of our Christian friends from Innsbruck University, they suggested to have a panel in that annual conference on Wittgenstein in one of the areas that Wittgenstein used to work as a teacher. And there's a huge conference, and we were there, maybe, 100 philosophers and theologians. Our panel was about Islamic and Christian philosophy on the topic of the soul. We had also another conference on soul with the same people in Innsbruck University in Qom. And I have another paper for that I will share later about creation of human soul. Especially, I discussed whether we should adopt philosophical approach to the beginning of the existence of the soul, or hadith approach, depending on how you understand, of course, hadith, because some people refer to the hadith which says that the soul was created before the body for 2,000 years before that, etc. So inshallah, these two papers are also being shared with you and discussed in this course. Plus, I will inshallah use some other things in English. For example, one of my sources for this paper is an article that you can inshallah find by Mr. Enati, Soul in Islamic Philosophy, in Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy. SC Shams Enati, volume 10. So that is also a good article. Pardon?
It is a she. She is a woman.
Yeah. She's a woman, huh? Yes, I haven't met her. Okay. Some of the topics that we are going to discuss, inshallah, as listed also in this book. One is, inshallah, we will have a kind of introductory discussion about definition of the soul, what we mean by soul. And as you know, it's not only human soul, we have different types of soul. Then we will talk about different faculties of soul, Hawza Nafs. Then about immateriality of the soul. Then inshallah we will talk about unity and multiplicity, unity versus multiplicity of the soul. About creation of the soul, about motion of the soul, about immortality of the soul, about relation between body and soul according to different Muslim philosophers, and about felicity, about happiness or sa'adah, felicity of the soul. Maybe we talk also about reincarnation, about tanasukh, but I'm not sure. We will see how much time we have. Okay. Before I start with my paper, maybe I can give you a little introduction, and then inshallah the paper would be easier to read. So there are different disciplines that study human soul. For example, we have empirical study of human soul. In psychology, today, discussion is about the soul, but from empirical perspective. Of course, some psychologists even deny the existence of the soul. So they, like behaviorists, they focus on the behavior and they don't want to say there is any substance which is basis of this behavior. But there is more tendency to pay attention to the soul from 1960s. You can also discuss about soul from Naqli perspective based on the Quran and Hadith. And you can have intellectual approach, rational, intellectual, philosophical approach. And that is to only follow demonstration or burhan and intellectual arguments for understanding the soul and its function, its faculties, its felicity, etc. So what is our aim is this last one. We don't want to engage in empirical knowledge of the soul or purely Quranic and Hadith based studies. Although we may refer to the Quran and Hadith, especially where there is a kind of support and harmony or conflict, because in both cases we need to mention. So when we say philosophical psychology or philosophical science of the soul, we mean a kind of discipline that studies human soul and other types of soul purely based on intellectual arguments. I am hesitant to say philosophical psychology because I'm worried that people think we are talking about the same thing as psychologists, but from philosophical perspective. So maybe it's better to say philosophical science of soul, although psychology means science of soul, but maybe this is better understood. Or philosophical study of the soul. Among philosophers, we find different definitions of the soul, and even they are different about which kind of soul exists or don't exist. So as we have in this book that I introduced and other places, we start with Plato, Aflatun. Aflatun has this definition that you find in Muslim textbooks or philosophical works. So Aflatun didn't speak in Arabic, but we say it in Arabic because it's a kind of a scholarly definition that it is quoted in many books. النفس مبدأ حياة الجسم وحركته. يعني مبدأ حركته. النفس مبدأ حياة الجسم وحركته. Soul here is not only human soul. Soul in general. Okay? Mabda here doesn't mean beginning. Although mabda many times means beginning, but here mabda means the cause, the doer, fa'il. Okay? Allah, cause. So, any jism, any physical object that has life and motion, there must be a cause for that. Because just by itself doesn't have life and motion. Yeah, we have lots of, physical objects that they don't have life and motion. So if there is a physical object, physical body, physical mass that has life and motion, there must be a cause for that. And this is called soul, nafs. Okay? Life for Plato here is a matter of nutrition, a matter of growth, a matter of reproduction, Ptolemy's reproduction. And this is only available in ajsam unsuri, in the physical objects that we study in like sciences like chemistry. So we are not talking about something which is aqli or mithali. Yeah, for him, this definition of nafs doesn't include anything which is intellectual substance or mithali substance. Okay, it has to be jism unsuri. But it can be nabati, vegetative, it can be haywani, animal, it can be insani, human. So we have vegetative soul, animal soul, human soul. They share life and motion. For Aristotle, definition changes. النفس كمال أول لجسم طبيعي عالي. Plato was just saying hayatul mabda hayatul jism wa harakatin, just jism. But Aristotle says kamalun awwal li jismin tabi'iyan ali. Ali with Hamza, which means organic. So kamal awwal here, kamal is not in the ethical sense. Kamal in existential sense. It means a kind of additional existence that comes for something, or a kind of perfection that comes, but perfection not in the sense of being a better necessarily, for example, because some of it has no ethical relevance. And even for insan, when we say kamal in philosophical sense, sometimes it doesn't mean something better. It's a kind of fi'liyat, it's a kind of actuality. Okay? So everything has two types of kamal. Sometimes is awwal, sometimes is sani. Awwal is what is involved in the definition. Sani is additional. Okay, sani can be also salis and rabi. Anything which is not primary, we say sani. So kamalun awwal لجسم طبيعي عالي. Tabi'i here means not artificial. Doesn't mean tabi'i opposite to jism ta'alimi, no, but jism tabi'i, jism ta'alimi, no. Tabi'i means is not artificial. It's natural and ali, organic. Organic means it has different parts with different functions. It has to be a compound subject, like physical body, compound, with organic relation between the parts. Each of them has some function, some task. Like in a tree you have branches, you have leaves, you have the trunk of the, you have the roots. Each has function. Or in a human body, you have different organs, kidney, heart, lungs, liver. Each has function. So كمال أول لجسم طبيعي عالي. For Ibn Sina, Abyssina, what we call Ibn Sina, النفس قوة في الجسم. So he uses now قوة. Although it's not very different from مبدأ, but قوة في الجسم تكون مبدأ لصدور أفاعيل ليست على وتيرة واحدة عادمة للإرادة. Nafs is a power in the physical object which is the cause for issuance of actions. But what kind of actions? There are two qualities for the actions. If these two qualities don't exist, there's no nafs. These actions should not be in uniformity all the time, in the same way all the time, like a robot or a machine that does everything the same way. Unless you give a program, maybe something has 10 programs, but every program always does it the same way. Whatever has nafs, like for example, even a plant. If you have 10 rose flowers, even if you put them in the same environment, each of them grows differently. They are not 100% the same. Okay? Or if you have few cats, put each of them in the same situation. The way they respond is different. One may run away from the right, one from left, one may jump, one may go, different routes. So, ليست على وتيرة واحدة is not the same type, the same way. وتيرة like طريقة. عادمة للإرادة. Also, these are two things. It's not a continuity of وتيرة, is a خبر بعد الخبر. Means ليست عادمة للإرادة. Doesn't lack إرادة. Because in فاعل طبيعي or فاعل بالطبيعة, for example, like water, fire, whatever they do, there's no irada. We need something which has irada and is not always the same. So if it is fa'il mujab, which is forced and has always the same action, like tabi'at, the nature, is excluded. According to more recent Muslim philosophers, contemporary or more recent, not contemporary, but more recent, even includes, last several hundred years. And nafsu, you find this definition also in Bidayat, Nihaya, and many books that are inspired by Mullah Sadr's Transcendental Philosophy. النفس هي الجوهر المجرد عن المادة ذاتا المتعلق بها فعلا. Unlike عقل, aql is another type of joy, not human aql, and the independent aql, intellect, is mujarrad zatan wa fi'lan. Yeah, is immaterial in essence and in action. But human soul, as soon as it is created, is mujarrad zatan. Even if you believe in Jismaniyatul Hudus, as soon as it is created, it's mujarrad. Okay? So it doesn't make difference what you believe about the beginning of the soul, whether it is Jismaniyatul Hudus, whether it is Ruhaniyatul Hudus, or whether it is Qadim, eternal. In essence, human soul is immaterial, not maddi. But in actions needs maddi. For example, my soul is responsible for understanding, or my emotions, my actions. But why I cannot understand what is happening in another place, although my soul doesn't have place? I cannot even see what is behind me. Does the soul have direction or space? No. Yeah, the soul is immaterial. What limits my soul is my body, because my soul for seeing uses eyes, and eyes are located in the way that I can see this way, up to certain distance. Anything beyond that distance or anything in another place, I cannot see. Is the limitation from the soul or from the body? Is the limitation from the body but affects the soul, although soul doesn't have any limitation in the space. Yeah? So, al-muta'alliqu biha fi'lan. Of course, they say there is a possibility that soul may improve and reach the point that can function without body. Yeah? There are people that, although they are physically alive and still they are running, functioning with the body, but the soul has other ways of seeing things. For example, the soul can see something in another place, or the soul is so powerful that can move objects which are not in their reach. They cannot reach this object, but the soul can move the object, because soul has become stronger and no longer is dependent on the body. To some extent, this happens to everyone after death. To some extent, because people are not the same. For example, when it comes to understanding, everyone will have better understanding after death. But when it comes to actions, not everyone is capable of doing actions after the death. Yeah? Some people in the hereafter, they are in a position that they cannot do anything. The Quran says, "La yamutu fiha wa la yahya." Neither they are dead so that they don't understanding the pain, nor they are alive so that they can defend themselves. Yeah, it's like a very passive situation, but at the same time understanding is there, and this makes it difficult for them. It seems that for them, then the soul is more, this is something that also I want you to check. It seems that for them, then nafs is more either haywani or insani. They don't believe that much in nafs and nabati as something whose essence is immaterial. This is more for animal soul and human soul, at least according to what is in the book درسنامه علم النفس فلسفی. خب, with this definition of the soul, according to Plato, Aristotle, Ibn Sina, and later Muslim philosophers, hopefully now we are in a better position to start my paper, inshallah. So, the topic of the paper is psychic substance, I called it, according to what also some other people say, psychic substance, jawhar nafsani. Okay? A meeting point between metaphysics and spirituality. So I wanted to say that this is a philosophical topic that also has the potential for helping us in developing better understanding of spirituality. So it's a kind of meeting point. And in my also studies in the Hawza from the beginning, I had great interest in philosophy and spirituality at the same time. I always were doing these things because I came to Qom for finding answers for my questions, especially about existence of God. And based on the books I had read, discussions I had in Tehran, and also lectures I had listened from ulama on radio, and also then borrowing cassettes. So as a teenager, I was very much following these discussions, and every book on existence of God I was buying and trying to read, but I was not convinced, and I decided to come to Qom to find the answer. But I was aware that I need both philosophy and spirituality, because philosophy helps me to be convinced by mind, but I knew that also my heart needs to be. So as a teenager, alhamdulillah, I had this understanding. And you've studied my life, you see I'm always studying philosophy, ethics, spirituality, but I didn't make that much progress, but at least my path was okay. So here also I am looking for a meeting point between metaphysics and spirituality. In other words, where metaphysics and spirituality can have dialogue. This dialogue is very important, yeah. So, I read from the paper. I hope you can also read, look at the paper if you need. Otherwise, you can listen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The discussion of the human soul, its existence, nature, eternity, and perfection occupies a focal position in Islamic philosophy. All Muslim philosophers concern themselves with the subject of the soul. There seems to be no exception. This is such a great topic that I don't think there is any Muslim philosopher who has not discussed about soul. The most detailed and most important works on this subject are those of Kendi, Farabi, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, Mullah Sadra or Sadruddin Shirazi, and Allamah Tabatabai. Referring to different types of substance discussed in Islamic philosophy, this paper focuses on psychic substance or soul. So first I introduce all 5 types of substance, but I focus on this one. And reviews of the nature and faculties, quwa, of the soul, highlighting the main characteristics of psychic substances and what features distinguish them from other substances, along with a discussion about happiness of the soul. Okay? So, I repeat. Nature, faculties of the soul, characteristics of psychic substances, and what distinguish them from other substances, plus a study of felicity or sa'ada. Now we start with a kind of introduction to substance in Islamic philosophy and its different types. Muslim philosophers recognize two aspects of every contingent being. Not every being, because in necessary being, these two aspects are identical. Al-Haqqa mahiyatuhu an-niyyatu. Okay? So this distinction between wujud and mahiyya is in contingent being, in mumkin al-wujud. Quiddity, or you can say nature, or whatness, or mahiyya, and existence, or being. All quiddities are universal. Yeah? Al-mahiyat kulliyatun. And it's only existence which individuates. We had this discussion in philosophy that before Farabi they thought maybe accidents can cause individuation, like Kam, Kaif, Ain, etc. But the reality is all these are universal. The only thing that can cause tashakhus or individuation is wujud, existence. Okay? So they are not mushakhis, the accident, they are awariz tashakhus. Okay? They are consequences of tashakhus. Khob. Ayatollah Misbah rahmatullah alayh writes in this way, and I have given reference also in philosophical instructions, آموزش فلسفه, lesson 24. Another issue is the problem raised in Islamic philosophy of whether a universal may be individuated by means of specific accidents. Every accident in reality also has a whatness to which the mind attributes universality. And therefore, it participates with whatness of that which has accidents in the need to be individuated. So these a'raz themselves are kulli, so they need also, like the substance, they also need something to help them with individuation. So they cannot cause individuation. And this question can be repeated with regard to them as to how they are to be individuated. How is the addition of a universal essence to cause the individuation of a universal essence of that which has accidents? Finally, Farabi offered the solution that individuation is an essential requirement of entified existence. Every essence in reality is found to be individuated by existence. A specific accident, each of which is individuated by its own existence, are considered mere signs of the individuation. Awariz tashakhus. They are not mushakhis. They are awariz tashakhus. And cannot be truly considered the cause of the individuation. They are not sabab or illa for tashakhus. They are awariz tashakhus. So mahiyya is kulli and it's different from existence, which is juz'i. Now, mahiyya is divided into two types: substance, jawhar, and accident or aras. Because either the substance, or either, it's better to say it this way, either the quiddity, the mahiyya, when it comes to existence, needs a locus, a mawzu, which cannot exist without it, or doesn't need a mawzu unless mawzu needs this. Yeah, because a very simple way is to say إذا وجد في موضوع or وجد لا في موضوع. If it exists with a locus or without locus. But more accurate is to say وجد لا في موضوع يستغني عنه. Because we have Jawhar which has locus like Surat al-Jasmiyah, but the locus is not independent, needs this. But Araz has locus which is independent or doesn't need this. Okay? So, I have explained this here, but if you don't have the text, maybe it's difficult to follow, but inshallah you have the text. So, you have the text. The reason for this clarification is that either a quiddity can exist in a locus or subject that has no need of it for existence, or it can exist without being in a locus that does not need it for existing. The former is called accident, such as quantity, quality, and relation, nisbah. The latter is called substance, such as body that has no locus, or form which has locus, but the locus needs this, is not independent. Okay? Now, let us focus on substance. So we started with distinguishing between wujud and mahiyya. Then we said mahiyya is divided to jawhar and araz. Now we want to focus on jawhar. On the basis of an inductive survey. What does it mean? I mean, this is based on istiqra. We don't have philosophical proof that there is only 5 types of jawhar. Actually, there are some philosophers who say there is 6. There are 6. They add misal. Okay? So therefore I said on the basis of an inductive survey. Induction, istiqra. The metaphysicians normally first divide substance into 5 kinds. For example, Allamah Tabatabai explicitly states that the 5-part division of substance is based on induction, and there is no rational argument that the number of types of substance cannot be more than 5. What are those 5? Matter or madda, a substance that possesses potentiality. Hamil quwwah. Form or surah with sad, not surah with sin like surah of Quran. A substance that gives actuality to matter. For example, bodily form, as Surah al-Jasmiyah, gives actuality to matter in respect to its 3 dimensions. Body or just a substance that is extended in 3 dimensions. Jahat Thalath. Soul, a substance free of matter in its essence, but connected with it and with matter in action. And intellect, meaning independent intellect, not human intellect, a substance that's free of matter both in its essence and in action. Then there is very delicate issue here. Muslim philosophers have made very important point here. It has to be noted that neither form, like bodily form, Surat al-Jasmiyah, nor soul, technically fall under the category of substance. So substance is not genus for them, though existentially they are substances. As far as I know, this is a distinction that has hardly been attended or noticed in Greek philosophy. For the Greeks, either something was a substance or not. However, Muslim philosophers believe that something may fulfill the requirements for being a substance, but still not be of a species of which substance is a genus. یعنی اینا نوع برای جوهر نیستن که بگیم جوهر جنسه و یه فصل is added to it, it becomes no. Okay? This means that they are not like accidents in need of locus that does not need them for its existence. So the definition of Johar applies to them. They are not aras. In other words, they are not like predicables, mahmulat, or qualities of something else. Essentially, the soul and bodily form can exist independently from the body or any locus, but they are yet different from other types of substance. Refuting the idea of reincarnation or tanasukh, Mullah Sadra in his Asfar makes a very important remark about the relation between soul and body. Inshallah, later we will expand on this topic also. He says, I explain first and then we will read. He says, unlike what some people think that body contains the soul, it's better to think soul contains the body. If something is going to contain something else, it should be the other way around. Because body can never contain something which is immaterial. Soul has no limitation of the body. Many people think if someone is dying, for example, the soul comes out of the body, but it's not like that. He argues that unlike what most people think, it's the soul that carries hamil and contains the body, and not vice versa. The soul uses the body as an instrument to act and exercise its power. So it's an instrument for the soul. As long as the soul has not developed into a status of complete independence, which I mentioned before, that if the soul becomes very strong, even in dunya, in physical life, the soul can be free from reliance on the body. So the soul uses the body as an instrument to act and exercise its power as long as the soul has not developed into the status of complete independence, wherein it will not need body at all if it becomes independent. Since the soul is abstract, inshallah we will argue later, or mujarrad, immaterial, there is no way of thinking of the physical body as container or carrier of the soul. So, the qualities of the soul and bodily form, ماهیت نفس و ماهیت صورت جسمیه, are not compounds of a genus and differentia. They are basit. If they were compound, you could say, okay, substance is johar, genus, fast is, for example, something else. But they are basit. Muslim philosophers such as Mullah Sadr and Allamah Tabatabai have a sophisticated argument here. According to them, form and differentia are identical in their reality. The only difference is beshart haml or la beshart, or beshart adam al haml la beshart. So according to them, form and differentia, surat, rafasd, are identical in their reality, and it's only the way we consider them that makes them different. On the other hand, we know that the differentia is simple and does not need in turn a genus and another differentia. Otherwise, it would become endless regression. Fast doesn't have gens and fast, and then again the fast gens and fast, yeah? Fast is basit. Otherwise, there would be endless series of differentia. Allamah Tabatabai puts the result as follows. The inclusion of bodily form in this classification is an accidental one. Because form is differentia negatively conditioned. بشرط عدم الحمل. And the differentia of substances do not fall under the category of substance, though the term substance may be predictable of it. So you can say it's substance, but you can say that substance is genus or gens. In Farsi we say gens, Arabic. As was seen in the discussion on quiddity. So the same relation that we have here, we can say it about soul. Both soul and bodily form are simple, not compound. Okay, so in the first part, the heading was substance and its different types. Now we go to the second heading of the paper about the soul. So here we want to now talk more about the soul. We want to focus on soul. Definition. As we saw earlier, soul is the substance which is free of matter in its essence, but connected with it in action. It means with matter in action. Soul is a form for the body to which it belongs. So body becomes madde sanaviyah and soul becomes surat for that. A very typical definition of soul is that it is a primary perfection. Al-Kamal al-Awwal. It's better to be Al-Kamal al-Awwal. Or Kamal al-Awwal, not one AL is missing. Al-Kamal al-Awwal for a natural body, jism tabi'i, capable of performing the secondary perfections necessitated by this primary perfection. A primary perfection is what makes a thing what it is, or what constitutes the essence or nature of something, like its differentia or genus, zatiyat, for example. For example, sensation and voluntary movement are essential elements for animals. حساس متحرك بالإرادة, yeah? Likewise, sensation, voluntary movement, and the ability to think are essential elements or primary perfections for human beings. In contrast, a secondary perfection is an external quality that is accidental to the nature of the species or genus, such as touching for animals or writing for human beings. So we are not talking about this, we are talking about primary perfection. Inshallah, in the next session, we will discuss about parts and faculties of the soul. It will be the second lesson of the book, and also will be second part of my paper, inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.